SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
We'll pre-record on my count. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Roll A, fade up on A.
Southern Miss to the top. You're tuned in to the Eagle Hour.
We're glad that you are on the SuperTalk Mississippi network of stations or online or however you happen to pick up this program. We're broadcasting from the Southern Bancorp Studios in Hattiesburg. Kelly Sander along with producer-engineer Michael Mergens. Bob, no. Bob's on vacation this week. Oh, but there's also Andrew Abbott's not here either. He's over in Europe vacationing. But the people who count are here today. Actually, young Padawan and future Jedi Knight Dima Mixon has taken over one of his seats that he had here on the program while the other two guys are out. And we're going to be talking with DJ Kujho here in just a second. A little bit later on in the program, we'll see what Dima has been up to. This first segment brought to you by Dickey's Barbecue Pit. Barbecued here, but loved everywhere. And as football season is about upon us, leave the tailgating things to them. You want to be able to hang out with friends and talk to friends and family. Dickey's has a wide selection of meats and sides to choose from, whether your tailgate group is big or small, and 3 big games right out of the gate at the Rock. Keep Dickey's Barbecue Pit in mind. Well, to the U.S. government, he is known as Marcus Carr, a 1999 graduate of Oak Grove High School. Later on went to Southern Miss, and for the last 16 years, he has been entertaining people all across this state and indeed the country. Again, Marcus Carr is more famous as the name DJ Kujho, who will be bringing his talents to the Rock this fall and entertaining crowds. And we welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First of all, let's talk about, and it is spelled differently, but let's talk about the name Kujho and where it came from.
So Kujho came from, I used to, at Oak Grove, just to circle that. OG,
right?
That came from me.
Okay.
I was the president of an organization called Sigma Beta, which is the youth organization of Phi Beta Sigma, and their sisters are Zeta Phi Beta. I was hanging out with the Zetas, Lambda Theta chapter, and my biological father is a member of Omega Psi Phi at Jackson State. And they were like, when you pledge, your name is going to be Kujho. So my freshman year, nobody called me Marcus. Everybody called me Kujho. And it just stuck.
I guess a lot of fraternities do that, going back to Animal House, right?
Yes.
Bluto and Flounder and all that.
Well, you said he's known to the government as Marcus. What are you known to the government as, Kelly?
My DJ name, Special K.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
that's what
DJ Special K, that's up.
Who doesn't pay taxes?
And actually, Kujho, you played at Dima's wedding.
I did. We had a time too. Like
that was
literally from start to finish. Like we were out. I think I still have videos. So
yeah. I would say every one of my guests said that was the best reception they had ever been to.
Yeah,
and I would recommend him to anybody else.
We had a ball.
And actually, Kujho, as you will now perform for Southern Miss fans, this is not the first football crowd that you've been in front of. In fact, you did a little bit at that other school up in Starkville.
Yeah, I was up north last season and decided to come home this season. I got an opportunity to talk to Spencer and Spencer Bridges, and him and my girl Leah. They welcomed me home with open arms, and got to talk to Coach Huff, and yeah, we're going to make it happen.
And actually, when Coach Huff learned about you, you guys indirectly are no strangers, because the first time you performed at the Rock was when Coach Huff was on the other sideline.
Yeah, I said it was very ironic. It was God's work for him to get a preview of what he's going to hear in the Rock.
There wasn't much to play for our side.
I did have a Southern Miss fan come up to me and said, "I don't know you, but this is the most fun I've had in the Rock taking the L." So,
well, there were plenty of opportunities for that to have happened. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
One of the cardinal rules in entertainment is to know your audience.
Exactly.
You've got hopefully 30,000 fans at the Rock this fall. You've got them from age 5 up to mine and Bob's age of 75.
Yeah, I'm mad Bob isn't here. I want to see him.
He said you're welcome back anytime. So.
I will come when I'm in the city. I will.
Notice how he's not on the show the day you're in.
Exactly.
But here's the dilemma I would think that you face as an entertainer, because you've got people like Bob that like Frank Zappa and Led Zeppelin and some of the old music, Boston, Journey, Foreigner, to people who are younger than Dima who have never heard of Boston, Foreigner, or Journey. So when you make your selections, how do you go about trying to make everybody happy?
Well, the thing is, you just make sure everybody has a moment where they're taken back to a time that they're happy, or taken back to a time that they're dancing. You make sure that you entertain everybody in the stadium. Everybody's not gonna be happy at every moment, every music selection, but you make sure that you go down everybody's aisle and make sure that they have a good time.
Because you also have and Dima, you can jump in on this too, you've got the dilemma if you're an administrator in athletics. The people who have, let's just be frank, the people who have got the money are the old people. Mm-hmm. You got to have them open up their wallets.
Yeah.
You got to have them have a good time. Now, they're outnumbered probably 3-1 by younger people, but if you don't cultivate and develop younger fans, they're never going to be the old fans that are coming up with the money.
Exactly.
So you can't tick off the old people
and you can't take
as
off
best you can.
Well, that's one thing that I've prided myself in over the past 16 years, that I've been able to DJ for anybody. I've DJed quinceañeras. I've DJed it's an Indian holiday called Ganesh Chaturthi. I had no idea what I was playing. I leaned on their expertise, and I just DJ'd off the beat, and we had a time. I've DJ'd bar mitzvahs. I've DJ'd for everybody. Mayor Barker brought me down to the coast to DJ his reception. Dr. Dolores McNair, when I think she was retiring from the President's Association for the Teachers Association for Mississippi, brought me down there. Like I DJ for everybody.
And I want to talk about your musical background, because now to you older listeners, particularly in the Hattiesburg area, and I'm going way back to the 50s, there was a group called Cozy Corley and the Blue Gardenias, which was a group out of Hattiesburg, actually on the charts in the late 50s and early 60s. Yep. And you've got ties to Cozy Corley.
So Cozy Corley is my uncle. The bass player in that group was my dad, John Corley. He passed away in 2021. My dad played guitar, drums, bass, piano, and also my mother is a singer. The music gene skipped me. I know how to play it, but it skipped me and went to my daughters. My oldest daughter, she sings and plays. My youngest daughter, she plays the drums. So yeah. And
actually, Marcus, a.k.a. Kujho, you really didn't even know that you necessarily had this prowess.
Yeah.
That you kind of discovered it.
Yeah. So I got my degree in accounting. So I had no tattoos. I was working, I think, I was a night auditor at La Quinta when we used to have one on 49.
So you were boring back then as an accountant?
Well, I was going to say over the past 16 years, I went from exciting back to boring. But yeah, the day that Michael Jackson passed, this is before Dima's time, but the not social media, but the LimeWire days, I would burn CDs whether I was at Jones, Pearl River, or USM. Michael Jackson passed. I made a mix. My big brother, DJ Sweat, who taught me how to DJ, we were at his home in Royal Springs with my friend Nelson and Rob. I made a mix. They loved it. Sweat was the Kujho of my generation, and he said, I'm gonna play at the club tonight. So you got 16, 17-year-olds vibing to, not 16, 17, 17 to 21-year-olds vibing to Michael Jackson. It was so good, he played it twice. I think he was getting ready to move, and he just basically taught me the ropes.
And the rest, as they say,
is
history. So Dima, you probably had a lot of choices that you could have, as far as entertainment went for your wedding.
Yes. Well, at the basketball games, I just knew that DJ was just so good. Like, I'm in the press box when I was covering the team, and I would be sitting there wanting to dance to the songs he was playing. And I know that my wife is like, she loves line dancing, and I just knew that DJ was going to be a great option for who could mix all of it. And I'm a guy who is more of the older songs. I don't like all the new stuff, anyways. Just because
and did not play.
And you did, and he did
balance of both
perfectly, and he did balance both of them, like you're saying. So
something as music transitions, as the world transitions, music does as well. And a lot of people Dima's age, I've seen them at live music concerts of the older bands, the Eagles, right, Electric Light Orchestra, some of the bands that are still touring, and they say that the reason they go is to actually hear good musicians do what they do, as opposed to having this mechanically produced music. We're going to talk about that, and then talk about what Kujho's got in store for Southern Miss fans during the upcoming season, and more stuff as we learn more about Marcus Carr, a.k.a. DJ Kujho, here on the Eagle Hour. We're going to take a commercial break and be back in just a moment.
Robinson Electric Supply in Laurel is a wholesaler and distributor that has been powering our community for over 20 years. With everything from conduits to tape, tools to home automation devices, if you can think of it, we supply it. All you need to do is talk us through the project at hand, and we'll ensure you're equipped to get it done right. To get all the electrical supplies you need, visit Robinson Electric at 519 North 13th Avenue or call us at 601-649-1317.
Hey, Southern Miss fans, TrustCare Health is proud to support the Golden Eagles and help keep our community in top shape, whether you're cheering at the Rock or the Peak. TrustCare has your back with convenient walk-in clinics and top-notch care for your urgent, primary, and kids' care needs. From game day injuries to everyday health needs, TrustCare is your go-to team. Visit us in Hattiesburg and Laurel, and let's keep the spirit of Southern Miss soaring to the top. Visit TrustCareHealth.com for more details. TrustCare Health. Feel better faster.
The Eagle Hour. Southern Miss to the top.
This segment brought to you by Campus Bookmart. It is the bright gold building right across from the main entrance to the campus at Southern Miss on Hardy Street. Your one-stop shop for all Southern Miss swag and anything that can have an Eagle logo printed on it, emblazoned in it, whatever. You'll find it at Campus Bookmart. They're open 24/7 on the web at Campus Bookmart. That's Campus Bookmart with a T.net. Kelly Sander along with Dima Mixon, producer engineer Michael Mergens, continuing our discussion with Marcus Carr, also known as DJ Kujho, who will be performing this fall at Southern Miss football games. So I wanted to follow up with what we talked about before the break, and then we'll get on to more Southern Miss related football stuff. Okay. So live musicians are, and Dima was nodding his head. And Dima, I want you're the youngest guy in the room. What is it about music you would think is music, but to a lot of you younger folks, you actually like to see the musicians do what they do? No doubt.
Journey is one of my favorite bands of all time, and just seeing like Neil Schon, we were able to actually watch him in New Orleans about 2 years ago, and somehow we got second row seats or whatever, but Neil Schon right there and doing guitar solos, and it's just incredible to see that. And just in a day and age where a lot of it isn't that. A lot of it isn't where they're sitting there with 2 or 3 minute guitar solos. You just can't make it up. And the music is just so much better in the 80s and 70s and 90s to me than it is now.
I got a video to show you when we get done.
Okay, sweet.
But Kujho, you've said that rarely, if ever, will you ever play the same things. So how do you determine? I know you talked about trying to make everybody happy, but the actual selections.
It's about energy. So let's take Dima's wedding. I don't look for the younger people. I find the older aunties, the grandmas, the moms playing, making sure getting their heads bobbing. Mm-hmm. They start bobbing their heads, they get out on the floor dancing. Everybody's going to come to the floor.
You sure they're not sleeping?
No.
Not my wedding. That was crazy.
They definitely, definitely were not sleeping at Dima's wedding.
Okay.
But yeah, no. So energy transfers. So I try to make, my motto is good vibes only. 2012, my mom saved my life from me taking my life. And from that point on, I said, I'm not going to think, speak, or act in a negative way. If it comes in, cool, but let it pass. So I'm a big proponent of energy, and I feel music is the greatest translator of that energy. If I have the players hyped up, the fans are going to be hyped up, and it's just going to be a full circle moment.
Whatever you're comfortable sharing, what did Coach Huff have to say about you doing your thing, and about did he have any ideas at all? Or
he said keep them hyped, keep the fans happy, and I mean that was Coach Huff is pretty straightforward. So when we talked, he said keep my players hyped, keep my fans happy, and we're good.
Now, that one segment that we talked about a little bit earlier, the old people, tend to be negative anyway. And again, I can get away with this because I'm one of them. Okay, so I'm talking about my peers. We don't like change. We tend to just gripe about everything. So to those old folks, Kujho, who go, oh, a DJ. Forget that it's you, just a DJ.
Yeah.
We want to hear the Pride all the time. To those older folks.
I love the Pride.
What do you say to the old folks?
I say come in with an open ear and your dancing shoes. It's going to be very surprising. The same thing happened at the basketball game, the first basketball game I did. They were like, who is Kujho? Why do we have a DJ? Why is the Pride not here? Which they ended up coming, and we actually started just like going off with each other and started like DJing and playing. They were playing, and I would scratch in some music, and like it's a great feeling to be able to rock with the Pride, and it's going to be even better in the rock.
Will Neck be played this fall?
Oh yeah, I think the Pride is definitely going to play Neck.
Okay, good.
I don't see it not being played.
Okay, we've gone a few years without it.
I don't know if it will, but hey, we'll see.
Okay. Now that was just me.
I don't know the Pride. I don't know what the Pride is going to play.
Yeah.
We will actually find out Wednesday on this program because
okay.
Travis Higa is going to be here, the director of the Pride, to promote the Drum and Bugle Corps competition that's coming to Hattiesburg later in July. So maybe he can give us a little sneak preview.
So the crazy thing is, my dad used to go around with the Garfield Cadets, which is DCI. I don't know if they're still in the Drum and Bugle Corps, but yeah, I have videos of the Garfield Cadets performing.
So when did you learn you skipped the music gene?
So I can play drums a little, but not. It's not my bread and butter.
And I want to put this other thing to rest with the older folks, because when you and I talked last week, you said, "I get it. Your words. It's what I signed up for."
Exactly.
This is not new to you.
I live by a motto of you're not as good as they say you are, you're not as bad as you say you are, as they say you are. You're somewhere in the middle. As long as I come in and give 100%, as long as I come in and make sure that I've done my all to make sure that the fans are hyped up, make sure the players are hyped up, I've done my job.
But I think that something that's really intriguing that you've said too is that you are cognizant of how music can affect particularly younger people. And lyrics sometimes can be out there.
Exactly.
And you don't go there.
I try to play. I try to play with little kids in mind. Of course, like not every song is gonna be cookie cutter. It's not gonna be anything too far. But you do have songs, and those more than likely will be played during pregame while the players are warming up. The fans hadn't even got in yet.
Yeah.
And Dima can attest to that too. The basketball games, he knows I go player music, and then I go into a transition of fan music, which is more pop, top 40, middle of the road stuff to make sure that people are satisfied and not calling Spencer or Jeremy like,
what is he playing?
Is he playing WAP? No. I'm sorry, Bob. That's not going to be played.
Well, the good thing about, and going back to the older music, a lot of what people attest to like hype football music to start is that, Thunderstruck, For Those About to Rock, Hell's Bells, stuff like that have all the fan type, is good for both sides of the spectrum, whether or not you want the modern age music versus the older, 80s, 70s, whatever. But the good thing is for the players, like you're saying, is you can play the modern music that they would like to hear when they're warming up. And then that's just how you flow it all, right?
Yeah. So I'm an 80s baby. So I grew up in that perfect time where I know how to use a rotary phone, and I also know how to use an iPhone. So I know Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses and Journey and all the older Motown, and I know all that. I grew up on it, and I also know Lil Baby and Chief Keef and Future. So I have a balance of both.
And
there's also Da Baby.
And the Baby.
and my boy Bad Bunny.
Yes, of course, and Bad Bunny.
The Latin influence
La Familia
is really coming on, isn't it?
It is.
In
music. The Latin influence and Afro beats.
So how do you stay on top? I mean, I've heard of Chief Keef and some of these artists that you're talking about, and I've actually met Diplo.
Yep.
Who is an EDM artist from Mississippi.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So I've met a lot of these people, but I'm not really familiar with what they do. So how do you stay current? Because you're not the youngest guy in the coffee shop, but you're by no means the oldest guy either. So how do you stay on top of what's current and what people like?
Well, that goes off of reading your charts, whether it's the Billboard, TikTok charts, Facebook charts, Instagram. You have so many media databases. I'm a member of this group called the Core DJs. It's like the NBA or NFL of DJing. It's only 5 of us, 5 members in Mississippi, I think. No, 6 members. So we also make sure that we keep each other attuned to what's popular. I also have my 2 brothers, Jonas, my 3 brothers, Jonas, George, and Silas. Some of my close DJ friends that keep me abreast on anything that they've heard new or anything I've heard new, or even classic old stuff. I'm really good friends with people that play for the NBA and the NFL, and the WNBA. So I'm able to, all right, this is working in this stadium. Kujho, you should try this.
And actually, you've talked about how DJs are really more part of an entertainment experience just about everywhere now, and that at some NFL stadiums there might be 4 or 5 different DJs all over the facility.
Exactly. You have some on the outside warming the crowd up. One of my good friends, Ari, she spins in Champion Square before the game starts in the Superdome. So you have DJs all over, and it's just a trend now to be able to have that experience.
And you really don't have a whole lot of freedom as far as people don't realize at a game. You guys are kind of scripted. Yeah. The general public doesn't know what's going on, but this commercial will go here. Jackson Walker, the PA announcer, will speak here.
Exactly.
Kujho will play his music here.
Yeah. So for those that are afraid that they're not going to hit a pride a lot, you will. Leah and the crew make sure that everybody gets a turn to play. So,
well, we jump looking forward to the upcoming season. Marcus / Kujho, great to have you here. We wish you so much. We wish you nothing but the best. And look, you got the gig, man. You got the job. We'll be there with an open mind and our dancing shoes on.
There you go. Southern Miss to the top.
All right. Marcus Carr, also known as DJ Kujho. You'll see him at Southern Miss football games this fall. Somebody else that you'll also be seeing is Dima Mixon, but now he has a ring on his left finger that he didn't have on last time he was on this show on a full-time basis. We'll get up to date with Dima Mixon as this Monday's Eagle Hour continues in a moment.
You're tuned in to the Eagle Hour. The Eagle Hour. Southern Miss to the top.
4th Street Bar and Grill brings you this segment of the Eagle Hour. Trivia on Wednesday nights, and of course the $11.95 Blue Plate Lunch. Big portions, and that includes your soft drink of choice at 4th Street Bar and Grill. Only a place in town, one of the very few places in town that has pool tables for you to enjoy a good game with the buddies. And there's always Southern Miss fans there at 4th Street Bar and Grill in the shadow of the rock right over the Highway 49 bridge on 4th Street. A special shout out, too, to Be Quick. They are celebrating their anniversary, actually through the end of July. Now, the way that this works, their 60th anniversary, they're giving away a bunch of really cool stuff. You can go by Be Quick at the corner of Highway 98 and Hegwood Road. That's if you're going up to Oak Grove Optimus Park. That's that Shell station there. Ask them for the Buffalo sticker, and you put it on your back window or your bumper or wherever you want to do that. And then spotters will be out driving around the area and identifying cars by their license plates. And then you go back in a little bit later and see if your car has been spotted. And if you do that, you may win a Saints football experience, a Mossy Oak shopping spree, Royal Caribbean cruise for 4, or a Biloxi offshore fishing trip. That's at Be Quick, celebrating their 60th anniversary through the end of July. And Mobay Beignet Company, the official dessert store of the Eagle Hour. It's right there on 2902. We talked about Campus Bookmart last segment. Well, Mobay Beignet is just right across the street as well from the Rose Garden there at Southern Miss. A lot of students like to go in there and study, enjoy the freshly made beignets and the big selection of hot and cold coffees. Mobay Beignet Company, glad to be with us on the Eagle Hour, and we are glad to have them. Dima Mixon, my old colleague, now sitting here to my right, has gotten married since the last time he was on the show, and I know when it was announced that Kujho was going to be on today, it worked out perfect, Dima, because he did perform at your wedding.
He did. He did an exceptional job, and I would recommend him to anyone. Like I said earlier, every single guest at our wedding said that was one of the best receptions they'd ever been at. So
I want to talk a little bit about Southern Miss football now. Yes. Coming up. Actually, this weekend I was out of town for a couple of days and took one of the flights out of Hattiesburg to Houston, and a couple of the football players from Southern Miss were also on that flight. And I said, "So what's it like playing for Coach Huff?" And they said, "He means business." And I said, well, I don't think he's going to be really all that accessible to the media as we have become accustomed to. And again, perfectly within his right. And I don't want to beat this dead horse. But the player's response to that was, well, look, he's just like Nick Saban. No. I mean, he's from the Saban coaching tree, and none of that should surprise you. And it's what we need, is what they said too. So your reaction to that persona that Charles Huff is giving off, whether he wants to or not.
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly what the team needs, and this is someone who covered the team, coming from someone who covered the team for 3 or 4 years, as everybody on the show hopefully knows that. You would just see things behind the scenes. I'm not going to name anything. You would just see things that you would think that would be a result of lack of discipline by the previous administration, and I think that has been nipped in the bud a little bit. Not a little bit, probably about a lot, by Charles Huff, and I think he's a guy, like you said, is a Nick Saban follower. There's a ton of them out there in college football right now. He coached under him, and when I interviewed him the few times that I did, I said, what did you learn? He said, I learned everything I do from Nick Saban, and I'm going to follow what he did. And he has huge goals outside of what he can achieve at Southern Miss, which he said he wants to be the first black coach to win the national championship. That's his goal of his, and so you can see that he's starting here. There were still a lot of questions about why you would make a lateral move from Marshall to Southern Miss, but you can see it now, at least what he's done in the transfer portal, in recruiting, starting to develop this program into what some would say back to where it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I still think it's going to take time. I don't think he can be able to do it in 2 or 3 years. But I mean, if he could get it turned around, bowl game this year, maybe compete for Sun Belt championships, you'd think it'd be good for the program. And if that comes with a disciplined coach who doesn't talk to the media, unfortunately for people in the media, that sucks. But for fans, it's not going to suck if you start winning. And some people have reached out to me, either by text message or phone call, and just casual conversations, and have said, really, Huff is not the exception. The way that he's running his ship so far at college football is really more the norm. Yep. And the past administration was just overboard friendly with the media. To that comparison, you say what? I would say 100%. I have never seen so much transparency and communication from previous coach Will Hall to media outlets, to the thing of, like, we were in a, nothing against it, but we were in a group text, me, you, and Bob, when we were on the Eagle Hour with the head coach of Southern Miss football. And, just, I can guarantee you probably won't be in a group text with Charles Huff, or we're not in a group text with Christian Ostrander, something like trying to give some comparisons. Normally you would have to go through Jack Duggan to talk to Coach Ostrander, and the same thing with Coach Huff. So a lot of transparency, and we were used to that. But, you go back before Will Hall's tenure, you go to Jay Hopson. It was very similar to this in Charles Huff. I think Jay Hopson was a little bit more open to the media, but it was very similar in the ways that he conducted practice interviews and practice viewing. There were sometimes he didn't allow media to watch practice and stuff like that. So it's not like it's a huge difference from what we've seen in the past, but when you think about what the last 4 years have looked like, man, it's a change.
It's interesting that you mentioned Jay Hopson, because 1 week from today, July 14th, Jay Hopson will be our in-studio guest for the entire hour.
Cool.
So we'll get to talk a lot of things as to what was true about his end at Southern Miss, maybe what wasn't true. He'll set the record straight and talk about the future health of college football as he perceives it. Jay Hopson 1 week from today.
Great.
Here on the Eagle Hour. But when we talk about what to expect out of this coming football season from Southern Miss, and we've mentioned this before on the show, Dima, that regardless of if it's Pee Wee youth football or tiny mites or midgets or whatever they call the little kids, all the way up to pros, if you don't have a quarterback, you're just dead in the water.
Yep.
Now, the fact that Southern Miss has an efficient, successful, know-how-to-win kind of guy at quarterback with Braylon Braxton, but yet early indications are they're not going to see much love as far as where people expect them to finish, especially considering that there were a lot of kids that transferred from that Marshall championship team over to here. And to me, that math just doesn't add up.
Yeah, I saw while I was reading Lindsay's football magazine on the plane ride. I was actually in California this past week. I was reading it on the plane ride back, and then I know Phil Steele comes out with his magazine every year. And yeah, the Lindsay had Southern Miss 13-14 in the Sun Belt, which to me seemed extremely low when you consider the amount of talent they were to bring in. Now, obviously, it's going to take a lot to rebuild, and I think everybody here is kind of in the believe it. We're not going to believe it till we see it kind of frame.
Well, they've been burned before.
Yes. And, last year, I would say the last 2 years, we've talked up this football team on this program through my writings. We've talked with this football team, and we were wrong. We were dead wrong. We were really wrong last year, like really wrong
But
last
to be
year.
fair, I think everybody was.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm just saying we as the media in general,
Right.
not just the show. But, I think this team, like I said, I don't think people are giving credit to where credit is due. Like you said, a quarterback has playing experience, has winning experience. That is something that Southern Miss fans have not seen since probably Nick Mullins.
So why isn't it happening? Why aren't they getting the love? Considering you also look at, there's been a lot of transitions at the other schools, including Marshall, where Coach Huff came from. New coaches at Coastal. There have been other new coaches that are out there.
Well, I think people who cover the Sun Belt do show them love. And I think a lot of times when you see these national college football writers, when they get to the group of 5 schools, they're kind of just pen and paper almost. I don't think they put as much time as they should. But when you look at there's certain Sun Belt accounts on Twitter and people that cover the Sun Belt, they do have Southern Miss up there in probably the top 10 out of all the Sun Belt football teams, which is probably where I'd put them. I'd probably put them anywhere in that 8 to 12 margin. That's where I'd put them, just because it is everything looks good, but it's looked good in the past. But I do think there are a lot of factors this year which could point to it. But I think there's still a lot of in me, and I think a lot of us in the fan base that are just we'll believe it when we see it mindset. And honestly, it really is on the football team to prove us wrong.
In the old days, people would say, well, give this new coach 4 or 5 years. Got to get his guys in here, et cetera, et
It's not
cetera.
like that anymore.
That was my question. So how does that timetable, how is it altered now in the advent of the transfer portal and NIL?
I think it's actually going to be pretty quick for Coach Huff. I don't think he's going to have a year or two to win the fan base over, because this is what the fan base sees right now. They see a coach who just won the Sun Belt Tournament Championship coming here. All right, so that's already under his belt. They already expect something good from him. And they have basically, all of the key pieces in that championship run on this team now. Braylon Braxton, a couple players on defense, a couple players on offense, offensive linemen, all these players, the wide receiver core, they added the wide receiver for Marshall. So this is basically, 2025 Marshall in Southern Miss uniforms with the exception of several other players. And then you also add in the offensive coordinator who came over, who's also Southern Miss, used to coach here. I think there's a lot of expectations, and I don't think he's going to have a year or two to win over the fan base. He's got to do it in year one.
Guest host Dima Mixon with us on the Eagle Hour. When we come back, we're going to talk a little baseball and see if he likes potentially Louisiana Tech being the new kid on the block in the Sun Belt, or if the Sun Belt should just sit tight, or whatever he thinks. The Eagle Hour continues on the other side of this break.
Robinson Electric Supply in Laurel is a wholesaler and distributor that has been powering our community for over 20 years. With everything from conduits to tape, tools to home automation devices, if you can think of it, we supply it. All you need to do is talk us through the project at hand, and we'll ensure you're equipped to get it done right. To get all the electrical supplies you need, visit Robinson Electric at 519 North 13th Avenue or call us at 601-649-1317.
Hey, Southern Miss fans, TrustCare Health is proud to support the Golden Eagles and help keep our community in top shape, whether you're cheering at the Rock or the Peak. TrustCare has your back with convenient walk-in clinics and top-notch care for your urgent, primary, and kids' care needs. From game day injuries to everyday health needs, TrustCare is your go-to team. Visit us in Hattiesburg and Laurel, and let's keep the spirit of Southern Miss soaring to the top. Visit TrustCareHealth.com for more details. TrustCare Health. Feel better faster.
Southern Miss to the top. To the top. You're tuned in to the Eagle Hour.
Thanks to our friends at DBAT who make this program possible. DBAT with its beautiful air-conditioned, immaculate indoor training facility. Believe it or not, some of the travel teams for softball and baseball are having tryouts already for next year if they haven't already played in their World Series. Well, that's the place you want to go to get ready. They've also got summer camps and a pro shop there that you can get all of your gear. DBAT in the big facility just off of Interstate 59 in Hattiesburg. Kelly Sanner along with Dima Mixon and producer-engineer Michael Mergens. Bob Getty on vacation this week. So is Andrew Abity. They will be back soon. We certainly hope that they will. And a reminder, if you can't join us live on the program, you can always download it by searching the SuperTalk Eagle Hour podcast on Apple, Audible, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, or you can just ask Alexa or Siri to play the SuperTalk Eagle Hour. Dima, a lot of talk about Texas State leaving the Sun Belt Conference after this upcoming academic year. They will be in the conference for the upcoming seasons of 25-26. Mm-hmm. Then they will bolt for the West Coast, and a lot of talk seemingly around Louisiana Tech coming back into the league. Pluses, minuses, what are your thoughts about the Bulldogs maybe being number one on the list?
I mean, I don't like Louisiana Tech coming into the league just because I think it's just too many Louisiana teams. That'd be three in that, or is that four? No, it'd be three. Three Louisiana teams, then Ruston and Monroe are like 45 minutes from each other. I mean, I think it would be cool to add someone else from the East Coast. I actually liked the Liberty idea. I don't know who threw that around on the show. I listened to that show when you were talking to Patrick McGee. But the Liberty idea to me sounds awesome. That would be a really good addition to this.
And that's in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Correct. And so I think you need to add someone on the East Coast. And, I still think Tulane would be a team that I still think is still a no-brainer why they wouldn't just ask them to be in. I know it's a Louisiana team, but I know that they're not going to leave the AAC. So that, to me, knocked them out. Memphis isn't going to leave the AAC. East Carolina, it wouldn't really make much sense for them right now, given their success in the AAC. So you got to think it'd be somebody from a Conference USA like Louisiana Tech or a Liberty, which I think Liberty would be really, really good for the league. You'd add another East Coast team.
But you haven't mentioned Western Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't like Western Kentucky either. I don't really see it gaining much for them. they've been doing fine in the Conference USA. So, no, I don't really think it makes a lot of sense for Texas State, though. I mean, that to me just it's silly to think. And I agree, I guess they'll get more money from the Pac-12, but it can't be like that much more because you saw the other teams that are in the Pac-12. They're not, juggernauts by any means. And I doubt Texas Tech is going to be going with them. I would be shocked. So you got to think like now you got to fly to every game now. All your away games for fans are going to be more difficult to get to. You got to fly the swim team in. I mean, that's why like UCLA in the Big Ten. That's what another one that's just like UCLA flying to Rutgers for swim meets. I mean, this just makes no sense.
Well, you talked about teams from the East Coast, but you didn't identify. Were you thinking of any particular team?
Liberty is my.
Okay.
I think that's just the one I would go with. Trying to think of any other teams that would be available on that side, but
would Kennesaw State carry enough weight?
Yes.
To be a Sun Belt because they're really good in baseball.
Yeah.
They have gotten better.
Again, that would be another
sports.
Georgia team, though, so you'd have 3 Georgia teams. And I think in that scenario, you might have to do away with divisions.
Because that would definitely be an Eastern Division team.
So then you'd have – because you're losing a Western Division team. So you need to – and that's my thing – that would be the problem with Liberty. You might have to move one of the Western divisions over, and you might could do a Georgia State, Georgia Southern, split them off. Real quick in the last minute or so, Media Day for the Sun Belt starts a week from tomorrow. Believe it or not, no, 2 weeks from tomorrow. 2 weeks from tomorrow, where Commissioner Gill will give his State of the Conference address. If you could ask Keith Gill one question, I'll go first. What would it be? My question would be, what are you going to do to strengthen this league from a basketball standpoint? Because it's deplorable right now. What would the one question, if you got to ask Keith Gill, would be on the top of your list? Well, I think right now the topic is conference expansion. So I would just ask him, do TV markets matter in the Sun Belt when it comes to conference expansion? Because if they do, then you could see why they would maybe not go with Louisiana Tech and maybe a Western Kentucky or a Kennesaw State,
which is right outside of Atlanta.
Correct. Yeah. So that would be my question, just because I know that my story would be about conference expansion. But basketball, of course, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, just terrible. It's just bad. And I don't know any sport that is affected as much by transfers and NIL deals as basketball is. I mean, it's really hard to be really good at basketball on this level. I mean, that's just the blunt truth of it. And it's going to be that way for the other sports as well, outside of baseball. I think baseball is still that one sport that a team like Southern Miss can win the College World Series. Coastal Carolina was in the finals. So just because of the game it is. But basketball and football are teetering away from ever becoming what it used to be 10 to 15 years ago, if it's not there already, which in football probably is. Well, we will get to see how the women's basketball program is shaping up, as head coach Missy Bilderback will be joining us on the program tomorrow to talk about her signees and where she sees the women's basketball program at this point. Glad that you could join us on this Monday. Don't forget to download us if you need to, but we're going to be here all week, and we hope that you will make plans to do so as well. For Dima Mixon and producer-engineer Michael Mergens, I'm Kelly Sander. Thanks for joining us. Until tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and as always, Southern Miss to the top.
Time keeps on slipping into the future. I want to fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free. I go through the revolution.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.